Alright, welcome back to the Crabby, and today we're going to learn how to play La Isla. Alright, so this is a Stefan Feld game. It's mostly based around multi-use cards that you're going to use in your tableau, but you're going to try to collect points by collecting the animal tokens and raising their values on the tracks. Alright, so before we start, three things like usual. Please like, subscribe, and comment on my YouTube channel. That'll be fantastic. Let's not waste any more time. This shouldn't be a long one. Let's go. Alright, this is a small game, so there's not much to set up. First thing you're going to do is set up your game board. You know, it is made up of these really weird map tiles. All right, you're going to set them up in a gigantic circle, and then you're going to put your final piece right in the middle. Every piece could be randomized. All right, next you're going to use 7 of every animal type tile, and you're going to fill up the 4 spaces again, just randomly place them out. So the dark spaces where there are numbers are where the animals are going to be. So there's 2s here, 3s here, and 4 and 2s out on the outside. All right, just a friendly reminder, the box does provide you with some extra chits in case you lose some, but make sure not to place them out when you're setting up the game. All right, on the side of the game board here, you're going to have all the cards. I just shuffled the level 1 and the level 2 cards together. You know, at the bottom here, you can see the level 2. But if you want a much simpler game, just use only the level 1 cards. You're going to have 2 of every player's explorers out on the side of the board that they'll be able to maybe get during the game. And all the resource cubes are out on the side as well. All right, on the other side here, these are where we're going to be tracking our points. All right, that's the outside of the board. These, you're going to put 1 explorer here to track it. And finally, the purple markers are going to tell you the stock value, what I like to call them, of all the animal types as they go up. All right, for every player, you're going to give them one of these very flimsy player boards. You're going to give them one of the 2-point animal stock chits. You're going to give them 5 of their explorers that sit under the C. Figure out who first player is and give them this token, and then give them 1 of every single resource type. So you have white, gray, yellow, green, and brown. So there you go. So after that, you're pretty much ready to go. All right, game overview here for La Isla. So like I mentioned in the intro, the base mechanism of this game revolves around the multi-use card system. So if we look at the anatomy of a card, you're going to see a special power up here when you slot into your tableau, a resource that you're going to get when you discard the card, and also which track of the animals that's going to go up also when you discard it. All right, so the game plays fairly simply. I mean, every round is going to be pretty much exactly the same. So you're always going to draw 3 cards at the start of a round. All right, then after that, everyone's going to slot these 3 cards into their tableau. So this is our little tableau. It's a little piece of paper. And the card that you slot into slot A, all right, because we are given 3 cards, so one's going to go in A, one's going to go in B, and one's going to go in D. So the card you slot into A is going to go into your tableau into one of these 3 spots, and it's going to give you a special power, as you can see here. The one that you slot into B is going to be discarded for the resource at the bottom left, and the one that you put in for D is going to be discarded to raise the stock of the animal on the bottom right. All right, that's pretty simple. Then when you're all doing that, you're all going to activate your stuff in turn order. All right, and then you're going to check if the game is over. If not, then you're just going to cycle again and do the exact same thing. Draw 3 cards, slot them in, do your turns, see if the game end triggered. If not, do it again and again and again. All right, so the game runs really fast, really easy. Nothing ever happens in between people's turns. The only thing you need to track at the end of a round is who the first player is going to be. This gets cycled to the next person every single time. And that's it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the different phases, and we're going to go through any of the nitty-gritty rules that are tied to that, and then I'm going to show you how the game ends and how to score. All right, so let's go. All right, so I think the easiest way to show you how all the phases work is strictly with an example. So let's go through a turn. So at the start of a round, we're all going to draw our 3 cards. Like I already mentioned, you're going to slot all 3 into your tableau over here. So let's just say I did something like this for whatever reason. All right. And then all the players are going to activate their A and B at the exact same time. All right, turn order only matters during phase C. I'm going to get to that a bit later. All right, so the card that you slotted into A is going to go up here into your tableau. So you have space for 3 different abilities. So as you can see, for the first 3 rounds of the game, no problem. You're always going to have an empty slot. You just keep slotting them in. But from rounds 4 onwards, you're going to have to make some decisions and cover up some of the previous abilities that you had to gain new abilities. Now you can keep going over the exact same one over and over again if you have other 2 abilities that are working well together, but that's sort of how it works. All right, so that's phase A. Now I'm not going to go through every single ability. There's so many. They're all kind of unique, but they all revolve around the 3 main things. When you're going up different tracks, when you're gaining resources during the phase B, or when you're putting your explorer on a specific type of area or a specific symbol out on the game board. Usually all the rewards revolve around getting different cubes, going up different tracks, or even just gaining points, and that's what this symbol means over here. All right, so that's phase A. All right, phase B is super simple. You're going to take the card that you slotted here and you're going to discard it and gain the resource type indicated on the bottom left. All right, so you're going to discard this to a common discard pool, get that resource, and put it into your general supply. FYI, don't forget to look at your special abilities because you might have something that might trigger during phase B. All right, so phase C is all about placing your explorers out onto the game board, and this is how you're going to be collecting the little animal chits that you see on the board. All right, now, like I had mentioned, this is the only phase that you actually have to do in turn order, and that's just because, you know, if you're all fighting for a specific animal, then turn order does matter. But in my experience, most of the time, it doesn't actually matter. You can all do it at the same time, and then if there's a conflict, you can go and check what the turn order would have been. All right, but how does phase work? Pretty simple. To place an explorer on the game board, it costs 2 of the exact same colored cube to place the explorer in that colored region. So, for example, I could place an explorer by discarding 2 green cubes to the general supply in any green region on the board. All right, so it could be out here, it could be on down here. You do have to note that in the inner circle here, there are 2 different spaces for every single color. So for green, it would either be over here or it would be over here. All right, and what you're trying to do is once you completely encircle an area with an animal, you're going to capture that animal. So every single turn you can put out 1 explorer, but let's say in round 2 I would put an explorer here, and in round 3 I would put an explorer here, obviously discarding the correct cubes. All right, then I would collect this animal over here because now that animal is completely surrounded by my colored explorers, and they have to be your colored explorers. Like if black had their guy over here, well, nobody would collect this. It would need to be red. All right, now in this game, you know, you can all share the exact same spot. Later in the game, black can even send their explorer out over here if they wanted to. All right. Another note is as you're playing, obviously at some point, let's say red would collect this one and this one. At some point, red would run out of explorers in their personal supply. All right. Now, if they would want to place an explorer in a different place, well, they would have to move an explorer that they already have on the board. So let's say they would play 2 gray, they would go over here, and then they would collect this chit, for example. All right, one thing I did forget to mention is every time you collect a chit, you're going to score the amount of points of the region that you took the chit. So in this example, I would score 3. Here I would score 3. Here I would score 2. Here, if I would take this chit, it would be 4. And you're going to see some 2s in the middle over here. All right, so you're going to go up the point track according to how many points you just received by taking the chit. And basically, that's what you're going to be doing. Collecting chits, making some points, and just keep going and going and going. All right, so remember, this phase you can go in turn order because, again, as you can see, if black and red were fighting for the exact same resource at some point, well, then turn order would matter. All right, so after collecting a chit, well, obviously it goes into your personal supply. All right, and this leads us into the second option you have in phase C, because as you can imagine, what if I just don't have the resources to put out a worker in the area that I want, or I just don't want to put out a worker that round? Well, that's when you can do your second option, which is forego the placing of the explorer step or movement step, and just collecting 1 resource from the general supply and putting it into your personal supply. So for example, let's just say they really wanted a gray cube because next turn they want to place a worker over here. Well, they'll forego their placement this round to collect the gray cube and put it into your personal supply. So you're either putting out an explorer or you're just going to collect the 1 cube from the general supply. All right, after everyone's done phase C, you're going to go to phase D. This is another phase that all the players can do at the exact same time. And what you're going to do is you're going to discard this card and you're going to go up on the track of the animal indicated on the bottom right. So you're going to look at the main board over here and you're going to go up. All right, you're also going to score how many of that type of animal you have in your personal supply. All right. Another note is that the big chit counts as 2. So for that puma icon or track, all right, I'm going to score 1, 2, 3, 4 every time I make it go up. All right, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 on the track on the outside. All right, this brings me to a general note. There are many abilities that make you go up on tracks. All right. at any point, whether it's phase A, B, or C, when you're going up the track, you always score the exact same way. So let's just say here, let's just say it was a different one where it said during phase B, I would go up a track of my choice. Well, during that phase, let's say I would have picked the exact same animal, then I would score those points again. All right, you always score when going up the tracks. Well, there you have it. Those are most of the rules. It's just pretty simple. You draw your 3 cards, you play them in your tableau, you're all going to activate them, and then you're going to check the game end trigger. All right, so at the end of every single round, all right, after everyone's, done their phase D, all right, you're going to check if the game ends, and that is when all the stocks of all the animals hit certain thresholds depending on the player count. So in a 2-player game, it's 7, in a 3-player game, it's 9, and a 4-player game, it's 11. And how you calculate that are the little numbers on the right of all the markers. All right, so let's zoom in a little bit. So for this marker, any of these 4 spaces is equal to 0. Any of these 3, it's a 1, these 3 is a 2, and you can see all the icons on the right. All right, so in this example over here, all right, the total stock value is going to be 2, 4, 7, 9, 9 total. So if we were playing a 2 or 3-player game, at the end of the round, if it was like this, you'll go straight to end game scoring. If you were playing a 4-player game, you'll still continue. All right, but then if it was like this in a 4-player game, then it would end, because if you do the total calculation of all this, it's above 11. All right, you can be much more than 11, it's fine. As soon as you hit that threshold, that's going to trigger the end of the game. All right, for endgame scoring, you're just going to add 3 things to the points you've already collected during the game. So you're collecting points. Remember, when you're collecting the chits off the board, you're scoring the points of that region. When you're moving up the tracks, you're going to be scoring points. And then at endgame, 3 different things. For every set of 5 that you have in your tableau, you're going to score 10 points. All right. Now, this brings me to this double chit again. This can count as 2 for that reason as well. So by having it here, I would score an extra 20 points at the end of the game. All right, after that, you're going to score for every single chit. Basically, look at their values on the board. So using the same values you calculate to trigger endgame, you're going to do the exact same thing. So when I look at the little hamsters over here, it's set to 4. So I'm going to get 2 times 4. After that, the dodo birds is 2 times 2. So that's another 4 points. The frogs is 3 times 2. So it's 6. The fly or mosquito is going to be 2 times 2 is 6. And then for the puma here, it's 2 times 4. So that's going to be 8. And finally, when you've done all that, you add your point totals together. You're going to get an extra point for every 2 resource cubes you got left in your possession. And then after that, whoever has the most points is going to win the game. All right, so those are all the rules to La Isla. Now, I'm just going to talk about a couple of variants that I always play with to make the game a little bit better. All right, so I play with 2 very easy to implement variants. All right, the first being, at the start of a round, instead of just drawing 3 cards, you draw 4. All right, as you can probably imagine, all right, instead of just drawing 3 and placing 3 into your tableau, well, you're going to get that extra card just to be a little bit more flexible and just not feel that it's just down to random luck whether you're going to get the cube you want, the power you want, or the animal that you want to go up the track. Now you have a bit of flexibility. You'll always have 1 card you'll obviously discard and not play. But there you go. That's the first variant. All right, the second variant that I like to play with is, you know what? 90% of the time, it never actually matters who goes first or plays their explorer first. It's very rare that there's collisions, especially in a 2 or 3 player game. So what I like to do is everyone just do your turns at the exact same time. So when you slot your cards, you slot your A, B, and D. When everyone's ready, all right, everyone says go, and then everyone just does their turn. All right, when you're experienced with the game, you don't have to monitor what everyone is doing. It runs much faster. You can pretty much run through a game of this in less than 30 minutes. All right, it just flies by really quick. All right, so those are the 2 things that I like to put in just to make the game a little bit better. All right, let me know if you play with any other variants and if you like them or not. And there you go. So those are all the rules to La Isla. We'll see you in the next one. Later.